who Acharya Prashant is.
I had become quite a bit of radical by then. I wanted a very shift of the center the entire world operates from. When you get paid more, it starts making lesser sense to quit everything, go out and secure funding. When I was 4 years old, I was interested in becoming a fighter pilot. What do you want to be today? Oh, I want to be an investment banker. What happened to the fighter pilot? And how do you know that tomorrow you will not be looking at this iBanker just the way today you are looking at the fighter pilot? I started seeing the limitations of bureaucracy.
Should people be scared of artificial intelligence?
People should rather be scared of not having true intelligence.
Alright, we are sitting at a setup that looks very unfamiliar possibly, and I welcome all of you to this very special episode of Konversations Cafe Podcast, where we are joined with none other than Acharya Prashant ji. Thank you very much, sir, for giving us time. Thank you very much for calling us in here.
Most welcome.
And it looks like a place which is like a knowledge mandir, and I am hoping that we get to learn some things from here, and I sit here on behalf of all the people who probably are listening to this, who are students, who are professionals, who want to learn something about their lives, themselves, and dig deeper into the learnings.
I'm glad to be having this conversation.
Thank you very much. So to begin with, I'm going to take you to the past a little bit for our audience, for them to understand who Acharya Prashant is. So tell me a little bit, what has been your growing up years when you were a kid, right? A lot of these ideas that we all have in our lives, the germination or the formation happens when we are a child, right? And how our parents form us or mold us, or our teachers mold us. What was it for you?
See, I had the good fortune to be protected from trivia, more or less. Not that I could absolutely escape it, but I could have good company in the form of books. Right. My late father was quite a learned man, and in his own very silent way, he ensured that I was insulated from a lot of nonsense. So, no gibberish, not the usual kind of television or movies or any of that. Books is what I had. Not that I was not a sociable kid. I had friends. I was quite mischievous. I was doing all those things in the school that most of the naughty ones do. But back home, I had great books to lean on, and a lot of them I actually couldn't even comprehend at that age. I'm talking of the age when I was 6 or 8 or 10 or 12. That was the time when I took to reading. So those were my growing up years. Academics, obviously, that was a priority. I was doing well at school, but besides academics, there was a lot of miscellaneous reading. Not organized in any sense, everything coming from all possible random directions. So 4 pages of history, then 2 articles on current affairs, then something from science and technology, then something on the important wars that India has fought, then something about the greatest scientific discoveries that have happened across the world. All kinds of things in both the languages, Hindi and English. So poetry, a lot of it, poetry, novels, anthologies of various shades. So that's what I distinctly remember about. I was reading a lot.
If I have to ask you, you mentioned a lot of information was coming from the books, from different sources, right? For kids today, a lot of this information is coming probably from internet, which probably is unregulated by their parents, and a lot of sorry, and a lot of this information probably is doing more harm than good, right? What exactly do you think is happening that probably was not happening in your case?
I had somebody to offer me an assortment. Right. It's not as if my father left me stranded in Daryaganj and said you can pick anything up and go read. He already sorted out for me, not for me, it was his own library, but it was quite a qualified library. Some 700 or something books, maybe 1,000 if I include everything all over the place. But it had the best of jewels from across the globe and spanning the ages. So I had that privilege, as I said, to be protected from trivia and nonsense and gossip of all kinds. So today's kids, see, it's upon somebody else to offer them an enlightened choice. Obviously choice has to be there. So I had the choice. These hundreds of books, and the kid can go and choose and read. But even the entire inventory from which the choice is to be made has to have a certain standard. So that the parents or the teachers have to ensure. If the kid is left to fend for herself, the results would be mixed at best, but disastrous in most cases.
Right.
So you cannot just make it a free market kind of thing for an 8-year-old. Somebody has to do the broader selection for the kid. And then from the broader selection, the kid can make her own choice. That's okay.
But this is exactly the antithesis of what exactly is happening right now. A lot of these parents are allowing their kids to be on social media platforms and on Instagram.
Right. See, please understand, our normal tendency is of the nature of running water. It will look to flow towards the lowest point possible. Ascension is always a task, a challenge, it demands effort. While falling is always so easy, one just has to surrender to gravity. And that's something found not only in kids, but in every human being. It's easy to gain weight, for example, and difficult to lose it. It's easy to be revengeful or full of hatred or ignorance, and difficult to be forgiving, considerate, compassionate, or learned. So all the real things, all the really lovely and beautiful things in life, they come at a price. One has to pursue them arduously. One has to put himself into it, and there is the effort that is needed. If you leave kids to look after themselves, they will flow the waterway. They will choose the worst kind of thing that can come to them. So, and that's something that even the parents know, because the parents too will go the same way unless there is the pressure of responsibility or the pressure of love. These are the things that make us rise against our biological nature, against the material gravity. Otherwise, we are all just de facto animals with a bit of intellect. And we will never choose the real things in life. We'll choose lust over love. We'll choose consumption over moderation. We'll choose self-gratification over, let's say, compassion towards others. So you leave a person uneducated and unattended, and to hope that the fellow will understand and learn and rise on his own is simply wishful thinking. It's not going to happen, and even if it's going to happen, it would be 1 in a million cases. That's too much of a stretch and a very odd kind of bet.
Did you want to become an engineer, or your parents wanted you to be?
No, I had no special inclination towards engineering. It's just that I was very clear I didn't like the shape of the world as it looked to me.
Right.
I didn't like how ignorant we all were. I saw that there was an unfinished agenda because I had been reading about the greats from all fields, science and technology, sports, politics. So in my limited knowledge, the civil services, the IAS in particular, was the place where one could bring about social change. And that was also influenced by the fact that both on my maternal side and my father's side, we had bureaucrats in the family. So I thought of going that way, and it would appear a bit amusing today. But the only reason I went to the IITs was because we used to have a magazine called CSR, Competition Success Review. I don't know whether it's still published. So that would contain the interviews of all the UPSC toppers mostly.
Right.
So I was quite a regular with that magazine for several years, and I very soon saw that most of these toppers are coming from the IITs. That was what was happening in the early 90s.
Right.
So I said that means that if you have to become an IAS, you need to be an IITian. So I said fine. So after class 10th, one has to pick something. It's not that I was especially focused on PCM. In fact, I had a greater love for biology.
Right.
I loved history and geography as well. I loved the languages, especially Hindi. So it's not as if I was made to be an engineer.
Right.
But I took up PCM just because that was the gateway to an IIT.
Correct.
So PCM was chosen so that I could get into an IIT, and IIT was chosen so that I could get into IAS.
Yes.
And that's how it happened.
But don't you think, or don't you feel that it was a borrowed dream that you had, like a lot of people do?
The way was borrowed, the dream was not, because the dream still lives on. I'm still doing what I was thinking of doing when I was 10 or 12 or something. Obviously in a more refined way. Obviously I understand the world better, and the work has shaped up more clearly, more beautifully. But I wanted to bring about a change. I was very clear, the way this earth is, it cannot go on like this. The way we people are, this is not at all in proportion to our potential. So things had to be changed, and that was the dream, if you want to call it a dream. That still is the dream. We have to be better individuals, and if we are better individuals, the shape of things around us, the systems, the economy, the education system, the politics, international relations, the application of science, the future of technology, all of it would change. Our arts, our literature, all of it would change.
Right. I might sound a little atrocious here, but I really thought that I should ask this question to you. People say that you make films don't change anything, right? They don't change society, they don't change people's mindset, they don't change how they are supposed to think, right? Because their parents probably have raised them in a certain way, and that's what they have learned, and that's what they're going to do. So how much can you change? The things that you're doing right now, right, or for that matter, people who either motivate or teach or make people understand the philosophies of life, how do you think that can make a bigger impact in life? And do you think that it's possible?
No, we are doing it every day. So it's not a matter of thought or conjecture anymore.
Hmm.
I'm seeing lives change in thousands, if not millions, every day in front of my own eyes. We are doing it.
Right.
We have actually done it. So it's not as if it's a pipe dream or a mere vision. I'm 45 now, and if I'm not doing it today, it would be too late. So it's actually materializing. It's just that a lot of it is probably not yet out in the public domain.
Right.
It's not yet making big news. So people do not yet know of it. But with all humility, I can say that the number of people, for example, who have been turned vegan, the number of girls and women who have now dared to, with courage, challenge their bondages, the number of young people who have chosen to live rather meaningful lives and discard the well-trodden path, that number easily runs into several lakhs.
Wow.
Several lakhs. And that's not a mere momentary change. People have taken irreversible steps. People have moved to places they would never come down from.
Give me one example, if I may.
It's very difficult to give one example because there are so many. How do I cite it? I mean,
something that's very close to you, something where you felt that, this is why I started
just download
this.
the Acharya Prashant app. Just download the Acharya Prashant app, and there you go to the community section, and you have live testimonials streaming in at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes.
Wow.
1 every 5 minutes. So that's what.
Right.
And that app has more than 1 million downloads. More than 1 million downloads, and live testimonials streaming in at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes.
Brilliant. I think that answers the kind of question that I had in mind. But let's going back to your journey during IIT. You said that you wanted to get into IIS, and that's why you wanted an entry through the IIT gates. When you actually got in, did you feel misplaced? Did you feel that you don't belong here? Like a lot of students do, probably, because we hear a lot of these stories. A lot of these students who are very young and they prepare very hard, and their parents' expectation is there. A lot of money is put into their education. What was your IIT dream like? Living that IIT dream like?
I didn't have an IIT dream. It was just a
pathway.
So it's not as if I was carrying humongous expectations and therefore I might have felt disappointed or something. IIT to me was a breath of fresh air. So I lived a fairly protected life before IIT. So I went there. Then by the time I got into the second year, I got a bike, and very free, very liberal and equally challenging environment, and massive pool of talent, bustling energy, and so much to do. I mean, I picked up sports, I got into dramatics, debating, writing, so much. I was a bit chubby when I entered. I just lost so much weight. I had to get all my jeans restitched. So because I was busy all the time.
Right.
There was so much to do, and one didn't want to miss out on any of those things. If there is nothing else to do, go just pick up the racket, and there is table tennis. All the sports, and I'm talking of the mid-90s.
Right.
India didn't really have too many sporting facilities in all the towns and places, not accessible to everybody. So it was just very, very happening, and competitiveness. Just when you thought that you had aced a particular course, you discover that there are 10 of them ahead of you, and you think that you couldn't have done it any better. And then you realize what raw talent alone can do. So you saw that you might have been heads and shoulders above everybody at the school level or the district level, in your own province. But when you come to a place like IIT Delhi, you discover that there are so many of them truly ahead of you in terms of pure talent. And then you also see what hard work can do. You saw many others who were not so talented, but just by dint of their diligence, they would make it into the top 10 in the department. So all kinds of things were happening, and it depended on you, what you wanted to extract from that place. I think I did a decently okay job of extracting value from those 4 years. I was not a daily one, but quite regular at the library as well. So there was reading, there was sports, there was co-curriculars, and politics. I stood for the student body elections. I was quite deeply into it at one point, and it was all round fun.
Correct. I'll tell you a few headlines that I get to read now of IITs. The recent one that I read, which was obnoxious in my opinion, was how people demanded that they should have separate eating places. Now there is a vegetarian corner, and some of the students who went there and ate their non-veg food there, and that made into national headline. And I was reading the Hindu and I read that. Some other headlines that I read was some student who committed suicide in IIT because of the caste slurs thrown at them. Right? The IITs that I know of growing up, it used to feature, or it has featured, or the alums of IITs like you have done wonders, right? And those were the people who were talked about, those were the inventions that were talked about, and that's exactly why IITs came into being. Now this is what you're hearing of IITs day in and day out. What it makes you feel?
See, I have been in decent touch with the IITs, mostly IIT Delhi, over all these years. So I know that the campuses are still doing far better than what we get to hear from the media. It says that the media has its own agenda, obviously. They'll pick up stuff that will make sensational headlines. So there is a lot more, obviously, that's happening in the IITs. If we look, for example, at the global standings, all the IITs have risen. And I suppose particularly IIT Delhi and IIT Bombay are continuously improving year by year. In one of the top rankings, which one I won't be able to recall, I suppose they have already entered the global top 50.
FT rankings.
Probably. I'll have to check. So, and we were lagging badly in my times. So there has been development, and these institutions, these great institutions, are actually only getting better each passing year. It's not that there is deterioration or something. Obviously, there always are things that one could still improve on, and there must be many areas to look into, consider, and develop. And development is an unending road. But I suppose the IITs are making the headlines for all the trivial reasons, and that's not got that much to do with the institutions themselves as it has to do with the media. The media is just scavenging on the rotten stuff. About the controversy that you're talking of, I've been to IIT Bombay a few times. One of my batchmates is actually a professor right there. The protest that you are referring to, that came from the students belonging to the Ambedkar Periyar Phule study circle. And if you look at the genesis of that body, it's both interesting and appreciable. If you want to get into the minds of the likes of Ambedkar or Phule, how can one find fault with that? It's just that the kids are quite young and they equate vegetarianism with Brahminism, right? Which is even factually a misplaced notion. Because if you look at the Brahmins of Bihar or Jharkhand or Odisha or Bengal or Assam, all the places in the east, that is, or even the Brahmins from the deep south, they very liberally consume flesh. So it's not as if you want to oppose Brahminism, you must oppose vegetarianism as well.
Right.
That's what those kids have done. It's not that they have something terribly against vegetarian food. What they are opposing is the injustices of the past and their carryover into the present. That's what they are opposing. And I think that's something very justifiable, and we must appreciate that. But where they are missing it is in the equivalence that they are mistakenly and quite imaginatively establishing between Brahminism and vegetarianism. One has to be vegetarian, rather a vegan, not out of ideology but out of compassion. You see, if we are talking of standing for the oppressed ones, that's what Ambedkar did, that's what Periyar did. If you are talking of standing for the oppressed ones, there is nobody more oppressed in the world today than these little kids from the various species. No? 10 lakh cows are slaughtered every day. A few million pigs, and then hundreds of millions of chicken, and countless million fish, 11 million ducks. They are not just being harassed or dominated, they are being slaughtered. So they are the most oppressed ones. If you are an Ambedkarite, you should be the first one to turn vegan. No? Because oppression should not see caste, oppression should not see gender, oppression should not see creed or color, oppression should also not see species. Should also not see species. It is very bad when a human being is oppressed. Is it also not equally bad when a sheep or a goat or a chicken or a fish or a pig is slaughtered? So I would request members of that study circle to kindly reconsider their stand and not posit a false equivalence. In the name of opposing Brahminism, how can we slaughter animals? There is no rhyme or reason to it.
Right. Since we are talking about equality in general, and you spoke about these three people that usually we name when we talk about oppression that has happened. A lot of oppression actually happens in a lot of these big institutes as well, right? If I can think of a lot of these suicides that take place happen because we fail the students who go there with a certain idea, value or dream that they have in their minds, right? Do you think India as a country is doing enough to protect these very kids who walk in to these very big institutes looking at a dream that probably somebody else has set for them, or they themselves have done it.
What do you mean when you ask whether India is doing enough?
I'm saying these are government institutes, right? Somewhere the government is responsible if there are no stringent laws in place, and it's happening again and again.
Laws relating to?
Yes, laws relating to the protection of these very students who are walking into these educational institutes. I mean,
protection against
discrimination that's happening.
Against discrimination,
yes.
In the name of caste particularly?
Yes.
Caste, you're saying? See, that protection has to be offered to all students at all places. IITs are very liberal places in that sense. I'm sure the environment has not really deteriorated over the last 20-25 years. When I was there, yes, obviously, the thing that you are talking of, that is present. People do know each other by their caste to an extent, especially the ones who are beneficiaries of reservations. They are well known because in many of the lists the names are mentioned separately, and that's a compulsion, that has to be that way. So they are known, but yet there is overall an environment of equality and friendliness. In my experience, even in the mid-90s, at least the IIT Delhi campus didn't have visible levels or visible signs of caste discrimination. And I'll be surprised if you tell me that the environment has actually deteriorated since then. I don't think that would have happened. Equally, I would admit that it's not as if everything was hunky-dory back then. We did know, and there was this consciousness that a few of our batchmates are different. They are different because they are here courtesy the reservation process. So that much we knew. We could also see that those who landed in the campus via the reservation route actually had it tougher for them because probably their background was not as privileged, so their CGPAs were a bit on the lower side, though there were some glorious exceptions. A few of the toppers belonged to the reserved sections. So we knew because these things were there, and there was openness.
Right.
The fellow himself would come up and say, "See, here I am, and I do not understand this subject. Just help me." So fine, that's okay. That's okay. Just as we help anybody else, you to sit here, and to the extent possible, I'll lend a helping hand. I do not remember even one incident where somebody was actually viciously targeted for his caste. No way. That was just not in. That was not happening. Because not because we were disciplined or obedient or courteous people. That was just not in the air. That's not how the whole institution vibed. So if you say people need to be protected on the basis of their caste, yes, but then there are other places where they are far more vulnerable. Those are the places where the society and the government should focus on. For example, small towns, villages, the schools there, where there is active and very, very heinous kind of discrimination. Discrimination not only among the students, but sometimes even the teachers very badly discriminate against the students. So that's where it is still happening. And those are the places we should rather focus on.
Thank you very much for an honest answer to that. I want to move a little beyond your IIT journey. Let's move on to your IIM journey now. I know for a fact that it was a precursor to your IS dream that you had. That's why you went into IIT also. But why joining IIM then? Because once you were done with your IIT, you could have worked at a place. You were an engineer. Why did you deciding to study for another 2 years?
See, all of it was just evolving. It's not as if these are episodic decisions. These things emerged over a period of time. So there was a background to my decision to join the civil services. But when you are in IIT Delhi, the capital city, and you start seeing how the world operates, you also start seeing how the world of private enterprise operates, not only in India but also across the world. Then you start seeing that there are powerful forces other than and beyond the government machinery that are affecting and changing the world continuously. When you are in a place like Kanpur or Lucknow, the places where I got my education from, most of it, the government is big. Right. And there is hardly any private enterprise. Even if there is private enterprise, scattered and not really of much worth. In Delhi, that's not the same. Also, you get exposed to the world, and the internet came on in a big way in 96, 97 in the campus. We had a top class connection, and we had access to all kinds of places on the web much before the rest of the country did.
Yeah.
So I started seeing that the power to change does not belong only to the government,
right.
More specifically the bureaucracy. There are other ways as well. Still, I proceeded with the preparation, the UPSC preparation. And the UPSC preparation is itself quite an enriching process, especially the general studies paper. So I learnt and learnt more. There was 2, 3, 4 intensive years, starting right from my second year at IIT, when I became very regular with the newspapers and the journals, and gleaned as much as possible from as many places as possible. And I started seeing the limitations of bureaucracy.
Right.
But still, I wrote the exam. So curiously, what happened was that by the time I got through, I was already disillusioned. So disillusioned that I walked into my UPSC interview in a pair of jeans. I had already made up my mind that even if I get selected, I'm not going to join.
Okay.
So that was the reason I had filled up the CAT form as well, along with the UPSC one. Though UPSC continued to remain close to my heart for historical reasons. It had been my dream since a decade or so. So that hangover, you could say, continued even after the breakup. But CAT had come in, and I could see that private enterprise means a lot. I didn't really get the time to prepare for CAT. November was my UPSC mains. CAT was on 9th or 10th of December. So could hardly give it a month, less than a month. And yeah, landed at IIM Ahmedabad.
You were scraping at that examination, but you landed at the topmost institute possible. Were you aware that it was the topmost institute that you were going to at that time?
I really didn't know that it is held in such high esteem.
Okay.
I really didn't know. In fact, I refused to fill up the forms for Indore and Kozhikode. So only the top 3 IIMs or something. So I said, I'm not going to go to the rest of them. My ignorance. I didn't know that they were really so big. So, and I could scrape through probably because I didn't feel the pressure to perform.
Right.
You know, when you don't have expectations from yourself, it sometimes happens that you perform beyond your regular level. Maybe that's what happened on the exam day that year. So I landed there, and I was not very happy to join IIM because the UPSC offer was there. The call letter was there. I was being called to the academy, and instead of going to the academy, I was going to Ahmedabad. So
This is which academy we are talking about?
Mussoorie?
The IS Academy.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So instead of going to Labasna,
The Labasna one.
I was going to
IIM
Ahmedabad.
This is a choice a lot of people would like in their lives, which you are projecting as a problem.
I actually wept on the day I reached the campus because I had never wanted to be there. So, and the fact is, had I secured IAS proper, I would probably had gone to the academy. Just a few marks more. In fact, in today's scenario, my rank would have sufficed to get me at least IPS, but that was not the case that particular year. So it was with a very heavy heart that I made the decision to go to IIM. And even then, I didn't really leave the bureaucratic thing. I asked them for a sabbatical, and they were gracious enough to extend it. And I actually resigned only after I graduated from IIM.
Okay.
So for 2 years, I was actually in service. So technically, I have 2 years of experience of being with the government.
Right.
And though I didn't really work even for a month, hardly for 8-9 days or something. That's my active thing.
But you were saying that your heart was not in Ahmedabad.
No.
And if your heart is not at a place that you are selecting or going to, you are inviting chaos in your life. It's something that I have understood in my personal life that has happened. So, what kind of chaos are we talking about? What exactly was happening, and how were you dealing with your anxieties at that point in time?
My past was calling me to the academy, and I also had my attempts left. I had just begun. So I could have appeared another time and gotten into IAS proper, and was very feasible. I just had to improve my rank a bit. So my past was calling, beckoning. On the other hand, my reason, my rationale was saying that the bureaucracy is not the place where you can bring about radical changes. And I had become quite a bit of radical by then. I didn't want management or cosmetic changes. I wanted to upend it all. I wanted a very shift of the center the entire world operates from. And even if I forced myself, it was impossible to not to see that such a thing cannot happen via the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is not the place where revolutionaries can do their work.
Correct.
And something in me was beginning to see that nothing short of a revolution would suffice. So, as I said, with a heavy heart, I had to bid goodbye to my IAS dream. So,
But was it satisfying for you at IIM Ahmedabad when you spent those 2 years? You know, it's a struggle.
It's a struggle, yeah.
Every time when your heart is not there, you know for a fact that you have to complete this degree.
Yes, yes.
But every day it's you waking up to something that you probably don't want to do. How do you manage that?
See, when it comes to knowledge, I'm a sucker. So I do not really bother how that knowledge would benefit me in the future. So if they are teaching me economics there, I'm fully present. If you are teaching me strategy of finance or accounting or HR or communications, I'm available. So in the classroom, I was very attentive, very active. It's just that when you are with yourself in your solitude, you have your inner demons,
Right.
and then questions regarding existence, purpose, and even the future, they pop up. So they did used to be there, but I learnt a lot. It's not as if I neglected academics. I did decently in academics as well. I wasn't one of the toppers or something, but I was doing okay. In my second year, I got into dramatics in a big way. So the entire second year, I spent doing plays. So there is that society IIM Acts, and I would go and pick up scripts from Badal Sarkar and Ayn Rand and Ionesco and Mohan Rakesh, and great scripts, wonderful scripts, and would direct, would act, and I gave myself totally to that process. In fact, all my angst got expressed on the stage itself. Those plays were an expression of what I was going through. So that's how the period at IIM was spent. A lot of what I learned there has proven very useful. I use it on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes when you look at people who have not been beneficiaries of management education, it's then that you realize how much you owe to an IIM,
Right.
because there are certain things that I find quite obvious and commonsensical. Courtesy, what I have been taught. But since those things appear very obvious now, so you just forget how important they are, and how much they are missed by those who do not have that knowledge or skills. So it's not as if those years went waste in any sense. Those were years of tremendous significance. I was surrounded with peers who were quite inspirational when it comes to application and diligence and focus and all that. Equally, I could see that profit and career were the sole motivators. So that place hardened me a lot. I said, I'm not going to go with the flow here.
Right.
I'm not going to belong to the campus. I'm not going to be one of them, though in many, many ways I really find them inspirational. But when it comes to meaning and purpose, I'm not going to have it from them. And the flow there, mind you, is quite strong. And it's quite an achievement just to not go with the flow.
Right.
So I often say that I am, in some sense, those 2 years really hardened me and prepared me for the challenges ahead.
Right.
Those 2 years were years of, in some sense, solid rebellion. Nobody enters IIMs to, or especially Ahmedabad, to do plays, and I was doing plays all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody goes there to be sitting at the Gandhi ashram half the time, and that's what I was doing. And Vastrapur and Gandhi ashram, they are quite a distance from each other, but I would pick up my bike, go there, somehow earn the money to distribute stuff to the kids there. You know, there was an NGO by the name Manav Rachna,
Right.
that operated from the ashram itself.
I'm aware, yes.
So I would teach the kids, be with them. Actually, the kids were supporting me. That's the reality, because they were doing me a favor by spending time with me, small kids. I would be just so happy if one of them gets to watch this, or one of them connects to me someday. But you know, they were so young, they would hardly have a memory of what was going on. So that's what I did at IIM, and just you know, grinding your teeth and clenching your fists and deciding I'm not going to belong to the system.
Right.
Yes, I am here to be educated. I'm grateful I'm getting this knowledge from this campus, but I do not partake in the spirit of careerism that this place has. I'm not here to make a career. I'm grateful you are giving me all this knowledge, but you know, the way everybody is just looking at internships and jobs and placements and this and that, I'm not I'm not participating in this.
Absolutely, and I want some nuggets of you on this. You know, every B school that I go to, I don't see this bit that you just mentioned as a focus. They don't talk about what the ultimate learning is. They start the conversation with what the ROI is going to be. And right now we are talking about 25 lakhs of loan, rupees of loan, right? And that's something that they're entering this organization with. Now, in the back of their minds, they're always thinking that, do I have the luxury to actually not think about money?
No, then you must see whether the whole thing is worth it at all. I shelled out a total of 2.5 lakh rupees,
Correct.
you know, and that included the cost of the desktop that I was given. So that was not really a consideration, even though I too went there on a student loan. But if it's 25 lakhs these days, one has to very sanely consider whether the whole thing makes sense.
Correct.
For an IIM, probably it does. But if it's 25 lakhs, even for the lesser institutions, if I may say so, then it's not advisable just doling out that amount. Because what's the point? The peak, the prime of your life, you are spending just somehow managing your EMIs, hardly makes sense. No.
Right.
I don't know why one should feel the pressure to have that degree on your CV against your name. So much can be done just even without that thing. If I look at it, in fact, please, I have many times more entrepreneurs from my IIT batch than I have from my IIM batch.
Right.
The IIT batch has been much more fertile in terms of yielding entrepreneurs, and a couple of unicorns as well. So it's not as if you really need that business education to do even materially well in life. Not compulsory, though useful, certainly useful.
Are you hinting that this mindset of getting a job hinders them from innovating?
The packages are bigger, so the stakes are higher, and that lowers your risk appetite. The packages in an IIM are like 2 or 3 times bigger compared to an IIT. Though there is a distribution. I'm just talking of the average package. It is quite possible that a top IITian gets a package that even a fellow from an IIM Ahmedabad may not match.
Yeah.
So that's possible. But when you get paid more, coming from an IIM, when you get paid more, it starts making lesser sense to quit everything and go out and brave the winds and the cold and secure funding and feel the pressure and bear the grind and do all those things. And also you are 24 or 25 by the time you complete your MBA education. So for many people, like it's another phase of life that awaits them. So they really are not in a position to take risks in a big way and in a prolonged way. Whereas when you complete your BTech or something, you are 21 or 22. So you have those 3-4 extra years when you can just play around with life and experiment things and see how it works for you.
Right. Tell me something, Acharya ji. This is a conundrum that I also have in my life, right? I always think that, what next? This is something that we all think, right? Am I doing the right thing? Where am I right now? Is this something that was meant for me and I'm doing the right thing or not? And what next that's coming for me? Is this something that constantly kind of eats you up as a professional?
If you pick up the right identity for yourself today and the consequent right action, the decision has been made for you already then when it comes to the future. Because the right work is just so overwhelming that you cannot ever call it done or completed or discarded. It starts owning you, it becomes your master. And it starts dictating your future.
Right.
It's like a love affair. Once you get into it, see, you have a kid at home, let's say. You become a father or you become a mother or something. You have a kid at home. Now you lose the luxury to envision the next day. How the next day would shape up is decided not by you but by the kid. That's what I'm saying. So get a kid.
I actually do. I have 1 dog and 2 cats, all of them rescued. And I really think about them. The moment you said that, it made me think about it. But let me ask this, and why I ask this question is because it's related to self-discovery. That's something that we all are in a journey for, right? We all want to know why we were sent to this universe or planet. So those very people probably who were your batchmates in IIM or IITs, they were also looking out what to do and what to make for themselves, right? Probably a lot of times we are not aware of what we actually can be, right? How do we discover ourselves then?
The question has to be there, and then the answers follow. None of the answers is perfect or final, but the answers readily follow. The problem is not the paucity of answers. The problem is the absence of the question itself.
Right.
Here you are presenting it as an indispensable existential question: what to do, how to live, what to make of life, what about the future. For most people, this query does not exist because their questions have received ready-made answers. They have their curiosity has been killed by answers supplied from the crowd, peers, or the past, or the system. So they just don't go through the entire churning, that productive turbulence, like the tilling of the soil. That does not happen with them.
Right.
So if you ask them, what are you going to do next year? They'll say, oh, we'll have a job and we'll be settled. What do you mean by job? You see, I have taken up marketing, so a marketing job. Okay, which company is in marketing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If not these 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Full stop. Now, where is the question of venturing into the unknown?
Yeah.
Where is the question of coming upon something fresh? Where is the question of any exploration of life? When everything is pre-decided and set in advance.
Right.
Why do you need to understand, realize, experiment? You can at most just worry. Worry that you might not get what you have been commanded to get.
Right.
Commanded by the forces of conditioning that have acted upon you. Your parents, the various influencers, and you know the rest of it. So at most you can worry, but you can never wonder.
Right. And what does it take to, get into this habit of wondering? Do you think that it's the teachers who push you in that direction, or do you think it's your parents, or do you think it's the consumption that you do yourself?
All of it. See, the environment does play a crucial role. We are not just born; we are made. So you do need a very enlightened educational system.
Do we have it?
No, not at all. And that's the gaping hole I'm trying to somewhat plug.
Right. So, do you call yourself a mentor and educationist first, and
I'm into education.
then something
yes.
else?
Yes, that's it. Nothing else. More than that. People love sensations, so they bring in exotic stuff like mysticism and this and that. I'm just a teacher. I'm just an ordinary teacher trying to tell something which I think is useful. That's all, nothing more.
And what is the most useful thing that I need in my self-discovery?
Before you proceed to anything that uses the word me or mine, you have to come to the word I. The scriptures put it this way: aham comes before mam. I comes before me or mine or whatever. So what am I searching as comes much before what I am searching for. Who are you in the search will decide what is it that you get in the search. So we are often looking out for stuff without questioning who is it who is looking out. What am I looking out as? What is the identity I have accorded myself? And we have a great freedom in that, Identities are not compulsive. We have a choice. And that's the fundamental freedom of consciousness, to decide what it must be. And therefore, because that's the fundamental freedom. So the fundamental problem then is to not to exercise that freedom, that choice. And most of us just do not exercise that freedom. We just, in a very insipid way, in a very supine way, accept the identities that have been put upon us by sheer chance. We take it. I'm a Hindu. Why? I was born in a Hindu family. I'm an engineer. Why? Because I happened to somehow land into an IIT campus.
Right.
No. Why should it be so compulsive? I must raise a family. Why? Because that's the norm. I must have a salary that exceeds such figures. If you ask that fellow, had this figure not been the norm, would he have still aspired for it?
Right.
And he'll be speechless. He will not know why exactly he aspires for that figure. But we want it because we have been told to want it. I must have this and that, I must get married, I must settle abroad, I must own properties abroad, I must, fine. Who's making these decisions for you? Dear me, there is even not a need to make a decision because the decision has already been made by your masters. It's just that you do not realize that you are subjugated.
Right. When you say masters, who are you referring to?
I do not, it's not of great importance who particularly the master is. What's of importance is that I am a slave. When you are incarcerated in a jail, does it really matter who the jailer is? And the jailers come and go.
Right.
What matters is that you are incarcerated. We are incarcerated, aren't we? The mind is the prison.
As Sherlock Holmes would often go back to the mind prison to find answers.
Do we really have freedom of mind? I mean, it doesn't matter whether we are coming from an IIM or a Harvard or whatever place, engineering, management, humanities, how does it matter? Is there freedom of mind? And if the mind is not free, then are we really distinct from animals? If we are to operate in a conditioned way, how do we then afford to call ourselves sapiens?
You said that bureaucracy puts limits. Do you think that these very managers who come in from the greatest of the institutes, who have such high rankings, they get to do what they want to do in the private sector?
That too disappointed me in a big way. So first of all, I left bureaucracy thinking that there is greater freedom in the private sector. All that proved to be just a lure.
Yeah.
A fantasy. In fact, in some sense, in the private sector, you are more constrained than in the public sector. In the public sector, at least there is security of engagement, of job. You can be transferred, but you cannot be thrown out. I discovered that in the private sector, if you do not conform to the whims of your bosses or your organization, you can be sacked immediately. So it was double disappointment. And then I said, fine, nothing doing, not the government and not the corporate sector. Let me figure out what to do on my own.
Right. I heard that you were writing poetry sitting at one of the offices, the corporate offices.
They had no work to give me, what else could I do?
But was it excruciatingly painful for a person like this?
It was very painful. I have been through long years of deep angst. It's far more relieving to fight and even die in an impossible battle than not to be able to fight the battle at all. In fact, it was at that time that I developed a special feeling for the character of Karna. He was not allowed to fight the battle of Kurukshetra as long as Bhishma Pitama was the commander of the Kaurav side. He said, you will sit there on the sidelines. And he was all the time just cooling his heels and wriggling his, I can't fight, I'm not being allowed to fight. 3.5 long years. I was just counting my days and then just asking myself, when would the real battle start? So I had a few debts to clear, and that was the only thing that was preventing me from calling it a day there. And the moment I was absolved of that burden, I just merrily hopped out and did what I could. And today here we are.
What is the difference between Acharya ji and an entrepreneur starting his own venture?
Not much. I am doing my thing, that fellow does his own thing. I am very much an entrepreneur. So I don't see that there is a difference in that sense. But then the difference between two entrepreneurial concerns corresponds to the difference between the entrepreneurs themselves. You see, we are two. There are two centers within us. There is the center of truth. There is a center that you could call as the human center. And then there is the animal center. Anything and everything that you could do can come from either of these centers. A word that you utter can come from this one or this one. For example, you say, I love you. That could mean two things, and two very, very different things, coming from this center or that center. You could say, I'm coming to you. That again could mean two very different things coming from this center to that center. I want to help you. Radically different things, this center and that center. Similarly, I'm establishing a firm of my own. Can mean two very different things coming from here or there. So while no doubt an entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship, but the difference lies in the center the whole effort is coming from.
Right.
You could come from a center where only your personal profit matters, and then probably you are just looking to find the first buyer and make an exit, or go for an IPO and sell off your holding. Or you could operate from love and say, come what may. This is not an organization, this is not a company or a firm, this is my life. This is my life, I love it. This is my life work, this is what I live for. I'm never going to sell it. In fact, I'm going to probably sacrifice myself at its altar. So technically both of these would be just, either companies or whatever, organizations of some kind. But they would be operating from two very, very different centers.
Right. Do you think we are always trying to, safeguard our image? I remember this very thing that Shah Rukh Khan once said. He said that I work for the brand SRK, right? And that's something that has stuck with me because he's honest about the fact that he's working for that brand that he's built.
Right.
And I have seen so many people and I've spoken to them and interacted with them. They don't accept it, right? What do you think about it?
You see, when your own idea of yourself comes from others, then you have no option but to be very careful about the image others have of you. I have something to sell and you won't buy it unless my actions, my words or whatever corresponds to the image that you have of me. I'm heavily dependent on you then. So I have to safeguard my image. That's how most people operate. They are there to take something from others.
Right.
And if I am to take something from you, you are not going to give it to me for free. You will demand something. And I have to present myself as the fulfiller of that demand. That's called the image. I need to have that image. I am the one who can give you what you want. I'll have to safeguard that image, right? Because I want something from you. there is no option but to safeguard your image, except one great exception, which is when you do not exist to want something from others. Instead, your job is to give something to others. And when you are out in the field to give and not to take, then it is not your image that you really care for, right? In fact, you see, when you are in the field to give, then your image is going to probably be one of the first casualties. Because giving is not about supplying to the other what he is desirous of.
Right.
Giving is about giving to the other what he really needs and does not even know that he needs. So when you give it to him, he does not feel grateful, he does not feel, or he does not accept the given thing with very open arms. Instead, he resists. The more you want to give it to him, the lower is the opinion he'll have of you.
Right.
Are you getting it? You see, in the marketplace, you fulfill a pre-existing need.
Right.
But in the field of real and deep life education, you have to tell the person that he has a need he is not even aware of. And when you tell that, it is not sweet to hear. It's like telling someone that he has a chronic disease, which he is not even aware of. So when you tell that to him, the fellow resists. He resists and he looks at you as an enemy.
Correct.
So if you really are in the field of education and if you really want to help someone, then you have to become indifferent to your public image, because your public image is definitely going to take a beating. People are going to curse you, and the more people curse you, the more you should understand that your work is at least being effective, if not succeeding outrightly.
Right.
It's hitting some place, it's pinching people at some place. So if you are in the field of education, you cannot afford to be image conscious. If you are image conscious, you will find yourself handicapped in terms of doing your real work. In fact, you have to be prepared to take abuses and be misunderstood and be subject to all kinds of slander and misinformation campaigns and all those things. You have to know in advance that that's going to come your way.
A lot of students that I talk to, it's the fear of the society, it's the fear of the unknown, it's the fear of the expectations that they're carrying that pushes them to probably become an engineer. And then they figure out that probably this is not something that I want it to be. And that's a reality for a lot of individuals and not just engineers. Probably fear is something that is stopping me from taking a plunge of starting something of myself, right? Fear is something that is stopping somebody who is in a relationship for 10 years to take that step to get married. Yeah. Where does this fear come from?
Lack of love, which comes from lack of self-knowledge. You see, when I tie my sense of existence, my very identity, to something that is unreliable, I will have to be afraid. It's like putting my heart on this table. Now, how can I live in security? The heart is out there on the table. Anybody can take it away. Anything can happen to it. Or the heart might grow legs and walk away on its own. You know, my very existence has been subjected to something that is not in my control. Something that is definitely going to deceive me at some point. That is fear. My sense of self-worth comes from my monies, my bank account. I will be afraid. That bank account can be closed anytime. Anything can happen. My sense of self-worth comes from my physical appearance. I very well know time will take it away. I will be afraid. Who am I? I am the one who is praised or worshipped by the society. Oh, I'll be so afraid, so afraid. You talked of people working for their images. They would be living a cursed life because their heart is out there in the hands of strangers. Their entire identity is tied to their image, and the image is in the eyes of other people. So the image can get distorted or can disappear any moment. Just imagine how afraid they would be all the time. That's with the ego. Because the ego, I said, is a fundamental sense of incompleteness. Therefore, to complete itself, it just associates itself to anything possible. And the things that you are associating yourself with, they are not reliable. They belong to the world. And the world can take them away. They belong to time. They came with time, and with time those things will disappear. And you have tied your identity to those things. Now how can you rest in peace? That's fear. If you do not have self-knowledge, you will always be afraid. My identity is linked to my husband's identity. Now the husband has two legs. And the husband has a mind, a brain of his own. If your identity comes from your husband's name, as happens in India at least, you would always be afraid as a wife. The husband can change his mind any day. You would always be, having one eye on his secretary and the other eye on his email and mobile phone. What's he getting into? Who's texting him? Why is he on the phone so late in the night? Because you are afraid. If the husband goes away, what happens to you? Your very existence depends on the husband. That's fear. When you operate from the ego center and make something very, very important for yourself, and that something belongs to the world, it can go away anytime. You are afraid. And in that fear, there can never be love. Never be love. If you are afraid of losing something, you will be very violent towards it. Nobody lets his money go and have a walk down the road. What do? You lock up your money. That's violence. When something starts becoming very meaningful to you, you lock it up. You don't want it to have freedom, and that's violence. So love and fear just cannot go together. If you are dependent on something or somebody, you would be afraid. And that dependence cannot be called as love. And that's a confusion we often get into. Just because you depend on somebody or somebody depends on you, you start feeling as if it is love. It is not.
You wrote a book on karma as well, and karma is something that probably this is the only thing that I believe in. I personally don't believe in the religion that is given to me, or the caste system that we talked about. I don't believe in hierarchies that the society has imposed on me, right? But the only thing that I believe probably in is in the karma and the doing, in what you are doing, right? How do we then make sure that we keep this fear, the love and the discipline that we spoke about, and sort of continue doing the karma that we are supposed to do?
Karma that you are supposed to do is conditioning. There is nothing that you are supposed to do. That's very anti-freedom. What do you mean by supposed to do? Nobody is supposed to do anything.
That I'm destined to do.
There is nothing that you are destined to do.
Okay.
Only liberation is your destiny. That's a bit like the Varna Vyavastha. That I have been assigned a particular karma and I am to do that all my life. If I am born in a cobbler's family, or I come from an ironsmith's place, or I come from a trader's place, then that's what I'm supposed to do all my life. No such obligations, not at all. Karma is action. The freedom of the actor decides the quality of the action. That's it. When we talk of action, there is always an actor behind it, right? The action is just an expression of the actor, a manifestation of the actor. If the actor is all right, we don't need to worry about the action. But we worry about the action so much. We talk of karma so much. We don't talk of the karta, the doer. So it's the karta that matters, not the karma. So the actor has to be taken care of. That actor is the ego. That actor must be healed. If the actor is healed, everything falls in place.
Right. How do we heal?
By looking at the disease. That's how it starts, no? You look at yourself and figure out how you are. You look at your thoughts, your feelings, your impulses, reactions, actions, and then you see how you are. And given that freedom is your nature, when you will discover sickness and bondages within, there is something within you that rises to rebel and heal. You say, no, unacceptable. I look at myself and what I see is not very pretty. So nothing doing, and the picture must change.
Right. One more aspect that probably is connected to this about healing is detachment, is what I understand, and this is something that I have kind of understood from my own life, as to if you detach from the things that is causing trouble to you, it actually eventually helps you. So the pursuit of becoming a filmmaker was so burdening on me at some point that I couldn't focus on things that was in front of me, right? This is something that the society puts on you, the people around you put on you, your family puts on you, and you yourself put on yourself. How do you then detach from these things to become the true self that you actually are?
You have to begin with attachment. Detachment is the result, the obvious result, the effortless result of true and honest observation of attachment. If you can observe your attachments with honesty, detachment just follows. Detachment is not something you have to work for. Effort lies in challenging attachments. And you cannot escape away from your attachments. You have to go right up to them and confront them. You have to see how you are attached, in what all ways. And when you see the very process of attachment, and when you see the futility of it all, then you say, no point being attached. And that's detachment. You cannot be detached if you have first of all not observed the entire flow, the crest and the trough, how at some point you feel indifferent, and then there is that association over time and coincidence and random chance, and you stay in mental touch with something, and over a period of time a sense of identity develops, and that's what you call as attachment. And then you see how hollow, how substanceless all that is. Then you just smile and something drops. That's detachment. Detachment therefore must never be talked of. One must always talk only of attachments. But we want to avoid the disease and yet gain health, which is not going to happen.
Right.
When you go to a physician, he would never offer you health. All that he talks to you about is just disease, disease and disease. And if the disease can be diagnosed and treated, health is the natural output.
Right. So if I'm interested in a particular profession, do I not pursue it wholeheartedly? Do I pursue it wholeheartedly, knowing very well that the results can be either 0 or 1?
One has to go into the very nature of interest. Aren't we interested in cricket? Aren't we interested seeing songs in movies? Practically everybody in India is interested in cricket. Nobody in Brazil is. And nobody in India is interested in ice hockey. So that's how flimsy the whole thing about interest is. In India, if you do not get a movie with songs, you say, I am disinterested, the movie would bomb. In Hollywood, if you have a movie with songs, that would raise eyebrows. What's going on? Occasionally you do have an odd song, some, but typically there is no song.
Right.
So that's the nature of interest. It is never something of the heart. Love and interest are not the same thing. Interest is something that is given to you by your body, by your environment, by random chance, by circumstances and all these. So that's how your interests come to you. So if you are interested in a vocation, first of all, you have to ask yourself, just 2 years back I was interested in something else. And 2 years before that I was interested in that. And when I was 4 years old, I was interested in becoming a fighter pilot. What happened to all those interests? Today I smile at those things and just shrug them off. I don't want to be a fighter pilot. I want to be, what do you want to be today? Oh, I want to be an investment banker. What happened to the fighter pilot? You were so interested in that. And how do you know that tomorrow you will not be looking at this iBanker just the way today you are looking at the fighter pilot? The self of 5 years old appears so naive and immature when you are 25. How do you know that at 35 you will not look back at this 25-year-old self and say, what the hell, how was I taking this fellow so seriously? No? So interest is something that you must always look at with healthy contempt. Interest, mind you, can even be induced in you. Interest can be aroused in you. That's what the entire advertising industry is about. They can make you feel interested in stuff that is intrinsically worthless to you.
Correct.
So of what value is this thing called interest? But then in today's world, we place so much premium upon this word, interest. Do what interests you, this, that. Whereas it's wisdom to realize that interest is the last thing that you should ever go after. Then people come up and say, no, then should we do things that we are not interested in? No. Figure out what you can love. Figure out what you can love. And you will never be able to transcend into love if you remain stuck with interests.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely loved the conversation, Acharya ji, and I have a few rapid fire questions, as we call it, because we have been discussing for a long time and I will not take any more of your time. I will straight away jump to those questions. And the first one is, what are some non-negotiables in your everyday routine, in your opinion?
Checking the reports come from various departments in my organization. That is something I do that without fail.
Right.
And the second thing is reading before I retire and sleep. So I read on a daily basis, something, anything, but I definitely read. And the reports. I cannot go to bed without looking at the reports. In fact, if people sleep without sending the reports, I go and wake them up.
Okay. Any favorite book or author that has deeply influenced your thinking? I know for a fact that you yourself are an author who have written countless books now.
That's a no-brainer. Upanishads. The Upanishads.
Right. Do you still read them?
Oh, obviously, that's not something you can ever get over with. You have to go through them again, and I have to read because I teach them.
Right.
So, the Kat Upanishad is what I'm currently teaching. The first time I taught Kat Upanishad was more than 10 years. So, I go back to them and I go through them over and over again and again every few years.
Right. Super. Do you have any podcast recommendations that you listen to? You said that some of these people that people consume is absolute garbage. Do you recommend something that people should listen to? Not really. Okay, we'll move on. What's the last book you read and enjoyed beyond Upanishads? If I have to ask you, any fiction book?
Fiction would be like just so many years back, I don't have any memory. The one that I'm currently reading is by Wu Xin, the forgotten book of Wu Xin, and it's called 5 volumes on non-duality.
Okay.
So I don't know whether it's readily available in the market, but it's a wonderful piece. It's you could say the Chinese equivalent of Ribhu Gita.
Okay, understood. What is the most challenging aspect of you being a writer? I can see so many books written here over the years, probably that you've written. Do you also have a writer's block?
No, I don't have a writer's block. I have a time block. So the most challenging aspect is finding the time to write. So the next one has been on the table for more than an year now.
Okay.
And the publisher has been gently reminding that I must send the final manuscript before I came to you today. After many days, I have been able to work on that book for some 6 hours today. I don't find the time. That's the block.
Right. Should people be scared of artificial intelligence?
No. People should rather be scared of not having true intelligence.
Okay, I really like that answer. If you were born again in the body of a 22-year-old, the experiences that you have had, would you like to do the same again, or would you do something else in your life?
Okay. The first thing, nobody ever gets born again, so that's very important part of my teaching. But for the sake of the answer, if I were to speak to my 22-year-old self, I would say commit yourself more rigorously to sports. There are 3 racket sports that I play, and then 4 rather, including table tennis, and then there is cricket, the ubiquitous one in India. But I would have loved to excel. I play well, but I cannot claim a level of performance I would rather want to have. So that's one thing I'll tell myself: commit yourself with much more love to your sports. And the second thing, save time as much as possible. Read even more. Trust yourself more. You can save time. I have experimented a lot with life, but probably there have been phases when the results were more or less clear, yet I persisted with the experimentation phase because I was still feeling uncertain. So I would advise myself to trust myself more and hence save time.
Right. Thank you very much, Acharya ji. On that note, I'll draw close to this particular conversation. I hope that people who are listening to this enriching podcast, they'll get something out of it. I definitely I'm going back with a lot of learning. I
I'm
expected to learn from you, and as I mentioned that I came in here as somebody who wants to pick your brains, wants to challenge a few ideas that I have, that probably you have, and probably a lot of people in our generation have, and I hope that I did justice to it to whatever extent possible. And I would leave that to the audience for us to tell. Do tell us who you want in this particular seat in the next episode in the Conversations Cafe podcast. Do tell us how this particular episode was for you. Do share it with your friends who you think needs to hear this that we spoke about today, and do subscribe to the channel if you like our content. Thank you very much, Acharya ji. It was lovely having you. Thank you.